Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. My name is Will Schick. I'm the Director of Product Development here at Atomic Mass Games, and today we are going to be painting one Leia Organa, Princess Leia to be precise, from the upcoming This Is Some Rescue Squad pack for Star Wars Shatterpoint. So pretty much today we're going to be working a lot on white, talking about how to paint that. We'll also be chatting and everything else, so we'll just kind of move along from there. Let's get this camera off of me and onto the star of our show, which is the miniature itself. Let's see. So first question that I can answer here. So in the chat, talk about the gunboat reprints of the Alpha Class Star Wings. We did announce those as a product that we were looking at bringing in, but unfortunately with the recent announcement and the situation with simply the cost of product development and manufacturing, we are not going to be offering those at this time. So all of those two reprints that we had discussed is coming out this year, which was the Alpha Class Star Wing and the TIE Phantom. Those will not be happening anymore. And that goes back kind of to if you read the initial announcement and everything else, the real core problem that we ran into, and part of the reason why we had to make the decision that we had to on the games, is the fact that the cost of manufacturing pre-assembled, pre-painted plastics to the level of quality that everyone expects and should demand from X-Wing over the course of its history has just become prohibitively expensive, to the point that the reality is that as we were looking at everything, we basically would have not just not made money, but we would have been paying money in order to print those things. So it just, again, unfortunately from a business standpoint and our ability to be able to operate and ensure that everyone who works so hard on these products from both the studio and from the Asmodee perspective, can actually afford to live, it didn't work out anymore. And there's a lot of factors that have gone into that. Just price increases in general obviously have a big impact on that. But as the announcement mentioned, we've seen across the board, right? And I don't think this comes as a surprise to anybody who's been living in the last 3 years. The cost of goods and production and products in general has just astronomically increased. And that's, it goes at every level, from the folks making products to everything else. The cost of shipping goods across the water and by rail and all of these things, like everything's just gone up. So one or two of those costs increasing, you can kind of as an entity or a business say, okay, we're gonna do a little price increase here, or we're gonna get some cost savings here by doing XYZ. Maybe we'll put less cards in it. Maybe we'll, try to see if we can somehow make this process slightly less expensive at some point in the manufacturing stage or things like that. But everything hitting kind of all at once and coming to a head, it was just at a point to where from a general business feasibility standpoint, we couldn't maintain the product line in a way in which it had to be maintained and as people expected. So unfortunately, those announced items are also going to wind up being shelved, and we will not be seeing them release as we had hoped. Legion having nothing new announced, just reprints or anything. Well, it's not true that we've only announced reprints, because if you go back and take a look at all of the things that we talked about from last mini extravaganza to this Adepticon, right, and the keynotes, we've announced a number of new products that aren't just the hard plastics. Obviously, the hard plastic resculpts are a significant project, but it's also one that we've been talking about. It has, a fairly long tail, because it's a huge undertaking for us. So it's not like it's going to be done all in 1 year. It's going to take a number of years. And so from that standpoint, right, we're putting a lot of effort and energy and investment into that whole process. The other thing that I can tell you without spoiling too much is that, we've talked a little bit on a couple of the different podcasts and interviews that we've done, but Mini Extravaganza, which just got announced, and the dates being the 18th, 19th, and 20th of July. Did I get that right, Ann?
Yes.
Awesome. I always want to say the 16th for some reason, but that's too early. It's the 18th, so it's Friday, Saturday, or Thursday,
Not in a way they can see.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, mini Strav. One of the very first, so it's going to be on the 18th. That Thursday, we have a really big Legion panel that's going to talk a lot about the game and where it's going. And that's not just about new products, but it's about just, the overall like state of the game. It's going to have some pretty exciting announcements, I think, for people. It's going to have some very cool reveals. So I would definitely tune into that. And we've been working on a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about at Mini Strav for 3.5 years, really, since almost right after we took over stewardship of the products. And so it's a big culmination event for us. I can't wait to see how people go and everything going on. So hopefully, if you can bear with us for 3.5-ish more weeks, get to that panel. I'll be able to spoil all the stuff for you along with my various AMG cohorts. But in the end, right, I can tell you that the amount of stuff we have in the works, the level of investment just into the game in general, and also, just the nature of the products themselves, right? So going back to discussing about, okay, well, the announcement itself kind of talked about this. We talked about it a little bit just a second ago, but cost of, it's the cost of manufacturing, the cost of making the products in the way in which they're supposed to be made. That was the deciding factor in terms of the announcement that we had to make for X-Wing and Armada. And obviously, the unassembled, unpainted, hard plastic miniatures have a very different kind of cost associated with them. There's different investment costs and all of those things. And well, obviously, like everything else, prices for those manufacturing processes have gone up. They've not gone up in the same way in which X-Wing and Armada have. And that's part of the, I think, overall strength and safety of the hobby miniatures versus pre-painted, pre-assembled stuff, right? There's just less hands-on assembly and factory manufacturing steps to them, because every time you have somebody do something for something, right, it's going to cost X amount of cost and dollars, because obviously the folks that work on those things, they also want to get paid. They want to be able to do stuff. The factory has to be able to stay in business and all of that. So you're just talking about if prices increase or inflation goes up and whatever at various stages, the more interaction or the more effort and steps that a product takes to get to its finished stage there are, the more those increases will affect it, right? So, that's their stage to it. And again, Legion, Shatterpoint, all of those other product lines, they don't have that risk or that expense associated with them, which means that they're a little less volatile and a little more sustainable in terms of that way, and especially in our current situation. So, realistically, those kinds of situations won't affect them. Please tell me one of her abilities is named Into the Garbage Chute Flyboy. Well, I can't really give spoilers, but also I don't think you'll be disappointed. So there you go.
Hey, what are you doing there?
I'm saying they're not going to be disappointed. That's it. If you want one of the abilities to be named Into the Garbage Chute Flyboy, I feel like there's probably very little risk that your dreams are going to get dashed, right? It may happen.
We won't call it a new hope, just a reasonable one.
I'm not guaranteeing anything, but I feel like it's a pretty safe bet. So we talked about having more information, right? And when we were discussing, being able to reveal to the community some kind of path forward, obviously, we always have multiple different plans in place. And everything that we do as a studio and everything else, again, remember, we're part of a bigger organization as a studio. We're part of Asmodee. And we also have the opportunity and the luxury to be able to work with our partners at LFL and our licensing folks on all of this stuff too. So it's a multifaceted process, and it's our job to make sure that we have, everything in place for the different outcomes that could be. And we hope for the best, but we also have to plan for every eventuality. So, when we were talking about that stuff, right, the fact of the matter is that there was going to be eventually a plan announced for the future, and our big goal was to just make sure that people knew that we weren't ignoring, the questions or the ask for what to expect, what was coming next. Like we were just discussing, right? We had a number of different products planned and in process for this year that now will not be released based on the current situation and the announcements that, we decided to make for all of the reasons that we previously discussed. So again, right, there was a little bit of a wait and see to what the final decisions would be made that was best for everyone involved. And obviously the studio has a big hand in that, but we don't act alone. We're part of a larger team and a larger group. And our goal is to, do everything we can that's correct for all of the people involved, because it's not just us. It's a much wider set of people. And therefore, there's just more checks along the way. There's more decision processes. We can recommend things and give our expert opinion on where things are at and provide options and solutions, but we have to come to all of those final decisions as a group because they don't just affect us. It's not just Atomic Mass. It's Asmodee, it's Lucasfilm, it's everything else. So. Is there a chance we get anything not shipped, saying official? It's difficult to say what the future holds, right? So obviously, you can just tell, you can see from the products that we released and the things we worked on that we did a number of non-ship products as well, right? We did the scenario packs, we did the Hot Shots and Aces pack. So we were exploring, we were always exploring different ways to expand the game and to continue development on the game that would be beneficial to both the player community and the studio and Asmodee and Lucasfilm and all that stuff as well, right? But I think the thing where we wound up, and this was echoed a lot within many of the player communities and discussions as well, is paper alone doesn't necessarily really advance the game in the way that it needs or requires. At some point, there's an important step for new ships in order to grow the game, and obviously we also have to be able to keep ships in print. It's not just about making new ships. It's about continuing to offer all the ships that new players need to grow the community, to be able to offer, starter boxes and things like that, of which we did the update to the single player starters for Rebels and Empire, which I think are the last products that came out in physical form that had ships in them, because the Battle of Endor was obviously the last of the X-Wing products that released. But the last ship products, I'm pretty sure, were those starter boxes, because I think the reprints came out before that. But regardless, we obviously have to be able to offer those things to players to keep the community growing and going too, just as doing new ships as well. And again, the exceptional increase in the cost of manufacturing those ship products, and everything else, you have to account for all of that when you're talking about, are you profitable as a business? Or what you're doing actually going to pay the people who have to work on it? Because it's not just the studio that does work on these products. There's an entire production team at Asmodee. There's the licensing department that coordinates with us and our licensors from Asmodee. There's all of the leadership and the different groups at Asmodee. There's the event team. Like all of those people, whether they have a direct hand in the product creation or not, are supported by the products that everyone across Asmodee makes. So you have to remember that when you look at one of these products and you say, okay, well, what's the actual cost? What am I paying for here, right? A lot of what you're paying for is not necessarily the material itself, but it's all of the people required. It's all of the effort required to get that product onto a shelf. And that is way more than just a sculptor. It's way more than just a game developer. It's way more than just a single studio. So all of that stuff has to be accounted for, and that effort has to, it has to make financial sense so the business can continue and grow. And, in the end, be profitable, right? Because in fact, all game studios that I'm aware of are not non-profits, right? They're all for-profit business. They want to grow and they want to increase and they want to be able to offer more and invest back into themselves and all that stuff. So the key word there is, as much as, it may pain me to say, is that profit is critically important. And so everything you do has to have some measure of profitability to it so that you can continue to grow and expand your business and grow and expand what you do and be able to invest in like marketing efforts and stuff like that. I don't have the mouse droid with me, unfortunately, and the frame is back in Dallas's office, but I would if it was right next to me. I totally would. I totally wouldn't make you wait for that. So I want to talk a little bit about the IP thing because I've seen it come up a few times, and I want to make it hopefully a little more clear if I can. So we as a studio, right? We're part of Asmodee. As I've discussed, right? Asmodee is our publisher, and so they are the ones that are critically important to our success. We are not independent of them. We are a part of Asmodee. We're part of the group and the family that is Asmodee. And part of that is that, Atomic Mass doesn't license the IPs that we use. That's all done through the centralized, publisher Asmodee. So it has nothing to do with the fact, like, we didn't not have the Star Wars license. We always had it because Asmodee is, we're part of Asmodee, and Asmodee is the one who holds that agreement. So there was no nefarious or secret kind of like need to do anything to be able to make any game under the various agreements that Asmodee holds, one of which is Star Wars. We always had access to that. Now, our role and goal as the studio, right, is to present a business case or a product plan that says, hey, we want to use X, Y, or Z thing. We want to use the Star Wars license that we have access to make this product, and here's the business case for why we think this product will work. Or sometimes it'll work in reverse, and Asmodee will say, hey, we have this opportunity and this license, and we'd like you to do X, Y, or Z with it to expand its, overall worth and potential for the group. And we'll go away with that, and we'll come up with a pitch of what we think we can do that will work well within the studio and everything else. So I guess my point here is that we didn't need, I've seen some conspiracy discussion or some misinformation passed out that we somehow needed to get all of the Star Wars games in order to be able to make our own Star Wars game, and that's just not true. So, we took over stewardship of all of the Star Wars games because Asmodee felt, and we discussed this right at the start when the transition happened, that consolidating all of their tabletop miniatures games under a dedicated tabletop miniature studio would net the best success for those games. And that it would be in the best interest of all the studios in order to allow them to specialize and focus on the things that they were built and designed to do. And, you can have any feeling on the outcome of how that worked, and that's perfectly fine, but that is the why. It had nothing to do with us needing to get the Star Wars license or access to it or anything like that. We already had it because Asmodee had it. So again, we have access to everything that Asmodee has, and then our role as the studio and as partners within the studio or within the Asmodee system, right? As a group within the Asmodee system is to utilize whatever's available to us from Asmodee to be able to see growing success for both the studio and Asmodee itself. Is the Luke model, is the Luke miniature in the box shorter than the Stormtrooper miniature? Should be. I mean, if we did the scaling right, he definitely will be. So. Yeah, he should line up as far as that goes. If I could only get 30 minutes of painting and then have to rest for 60 minutes, how do I approach painting? That's a good question. So I think, as a parent, right, and somebody who has 2 teenage kids now, like early teens, who have lots of different activities that they have to get to and all of that, and then our weekends are always busy. I typically have to do something similar where I really need to be aware of my painting time and what I'm trying to do during that hobby stage. So my first suggestion would be just, make sure that you have a plan, right? So what are you trying to accomplish in your hobby time? And then just work towards that goal. So I think the big thing would be, I have 30 minutes. I want to get my base coats down on everything for these characters or this unit, right? And your speed and how quickly you can kind of progress in that. So start there. And effectively, kind of before you even begin putting paint to brush, think about where you want to go so that you can maximize that time efficiently, right? You don't have to pause and say, all right, I'm going to hold this miniature while I try to figure out what my next color is, or I'm going to try to set my palette, or, you can look at that stuff. Instead, you can really maximize your time with your ability to hold the miniature and everything else before you have to take that break to reset. And that should, really effectively help. The other thing to do is to determine, and I don't know, because this is always a personal choice, but what's the level of painting that you're trying to do, right? Are you trying to accomplish a worthy level kind of style? Are you just painting for tabletop quality? And then I would research techniques that would help me do that. So for me, the big thing that I want to do is I'm not trying to paint to a super high level. I'm just purely trying to paint to a tabletop level most of the time. I want my miniatures to look good on the shelf and on the table, and so I can have these really cool, fully painted miniature battles. And so with that, right, I've practiced and worked on techniques that allow me to achieve that goal relatively quickly. So I'm a big proponent of oil washes. And I use a combination of airbrush and oil washes, and then I finish with acrylics as like a final highlight layer. And that gets me a really good end quality tabletop miniature that I very much enjoy the look of. but it does so with a minimal amount of effort and time. So whereas in the past, before I was doing stuff like that, it would take me maybe, let's say 3 hours to paint a Leia. I can now, with that process, crank out a Leia to a similar or the same kind of overall quality in half that time, right? Now, it took me a little bit of effort and work to build up to the point to where I was proficient with those techniques to be able to make that happen. But that's another really big kind of trick to it, is look for techniques or ways of painting, whether that's a high contrast approach, which I know is all the rage, slap chop, as a lot of the painters that I watch now for different inspiration and stuff call it. I know the slap chop craze is still around and very healthy. So you could do slap chop. You could look at oil washes. You could look at all these different other techniques. Maybe an airbrush would work well for you if that's a technique that would both work with the challenges that you have and then also with just how you want to paint. Because I'll be the first to say that airbrushing is very different, and it takes a whole kind of different level of practice and skill to get good at. But once you get good at it, it might be the thing that really works for you. I've very much enjoyed it. But there was a period where I was much slower with the airbrush because I was learning it. And so I was willing to put in that effort because I kind of saw, well, one, I was enjoying just doing the airbrush. I was like, I'm really bad at this, but it's fun. And then two, I kind of saw where the benefits would lead me, right? I had a goal in mind, and I was like, if I can get to this point, if I can get good enough on this, then I'll see these benefits and it'll be really worth the investment of my time and patience and practice. So that's another option too, right? But that's kind of my suggestion, is just, be very aware of what you're trying to accomplish so that you can be very efficient with the time that you have and not spend a lot of time going back and forth or trying to figure out, what color am I at? Where should I go? Whatever. Knock that stuff out by kind of coming up with a plan before, and then I would really look at techniques that are available to you that seem like they'll hit what you're looking for in your painting and hobby time, and practice those techniques to become very proficient at them. And then I bet that will take you, a long way, right? And then I'm sure, as Dallas told you, ergonomics, figure out what's comfortable for you, what keeps you from feeling too fatigued and all of that stuff right away. All those things are very good as well. And they can be very helpful as well. Have my kids ever spoiled something because I brought my work home? My children are very, very well trained. Impressively so, actually. When we were starting the studio way back when, this might be a story that comes out during our retrospective, because one of the fun things we're going to do at Ministrav this year is, in addition to talking about all the games and everything cool coming out for them and doing some behind the scenes like developer stuff and all that, we're also going to be taking a little bit of time to celebrate the fact that Atomic Mass is coming up on 5 years. So we've been officially present as a studio to the public for 5 years, which is I think it's a big milestone, and we're very excited to be there and have the opportunity to continue to grow and all of that stuff. But regardless, so the studio it existed obviously well before anyone knew that we were a thing. Because the first time we announced ourselves to the public, even to some of the folks within Asmodee, the Asmodee group, because they didn't even know that we existed. That's how big of a secret we were at the time. We were secret even among our larger organization of which we're a part. Obviously, my family knew what was going on, so my kids were aware of what I was working on and everything else, because it's impossible to keep all that stuff away from your family. So they knew, but I had to be very clear with them. I was like, look, you're going to see this stuff in the house, and we're going to be working on it, because I was also working a bit from home at the time because we didn't have an official office space for part of it and all this stuff. And effectively, I had to tell them, I was like, you can't tell anybody that I'm doing this. And they took that very seriously, to the point that I remember my oldest child was, after we announced at Gen Con and everything, and I came back, he was like, Dad, can I finally tell people that you do stuff? And I was like, yes, you're weapons free to let all your friends know that your dad works on a Marvel game and as part of the studio and all this. I was like, I don't think your friends care though, because you're 7, or no, how old was he? 8 at the time. I was like, you're 8 years old. I don't really think too many of your friends are super into hobby miniatures, but you can go ahead and let them know. And he was very excited to finally not be burdened with Dad's secret anymore. So it was funny. But they are very good about understanding that a lot of the stuff that I am privileged enough and blessed enough to be able to work on has to be kept on the down low. It is not for public consumption. And so oftentimes if they're very excited about something, they will ask, or every once in a while at dinner or something, they'll be like, Dad, are you working on something new? Are you working on a new game? And usually, my answer is no, we're just working on a lot of cool stuff for the things we already have. And then every, once in a blue moon, which it's been a while, it's been 3.5 years almost now, to where I was able to be like, oh yes, we are working on some new stuff. But for the most part, the answer is always no, nothing new, just a lot of really cool stuff for the things we already make. And then they're like, oh, that's really cool. And, they continue to keep it a secret. So
I love that your secret keepers are interested in what new secrets they can harbor.
Yeah. They know, they understand the currency of, a good inside track. For the 5 years, will I finally get? No, I'm not going to get my own desk. They took my desks away. I had an office for a little bit, and then the office got bequeathed to other people. So.
All I'll say is that there is a second desk in my office.
That's true. I could use that, but I feel like that's going to get filled at some point.
I mean, it probably will, but there is.
And then I'll just get evicted. I don't know if my heart could handle getting evicted from a desk again. It's pretty rough.
I mean, listen. What I'm saying is, I'm being rejected in my gift.
True. It's true.
Of a desk to you.
If I'm being completely real, I kind of like the freedom of not having a desk, because it means no one knows where to go to find you in the office. So they have to go on a little quest. They have to be like, where's Schick? Where is he? Because I could be in like one of 4 different places when I'm here in the office.
I also really enjoy being able to think, and also having a seat if someone needs to come and talk about something.
Well, I'm not I don't think I'm super loud, but maybe I am. I'm only disruptive in the team chats when I find, awesome indie movie trailers that I have to share with everyone. And then I go on a deep dive of like, did you realize that this is a whole series?
It's true. I also really enjoy being near where y'all are playtesting, because I get to kind of like, through osmosis here.
Learn
there are the
everything that's
mornings
going
where
on.
you guys are getting real competitive and juicy.
Oh, it gets vicious at
scary.
times. It gets vicious at times in playtest.
It is scary.
It's not exactly the competitive nature doesn't necessarily come out because somebody wants to win the game. But if we're having a bit of a debate about a specific rules change, or some kind of development related like discussion over X, Y, or Z stat, or a command card or something like that. They get pretty competitive about proving their point, right?
It's debate.
Aggression. 100%.
Not like aggression mean to each other, but like, do you really think that this would be blah blah blah?
Well, and proving your point, in the hollowed arena of playtest it can get pretty important, right?
Oh yeah, they love. When I play test, I just get to say how I felt about a thing, but I don't have the burden of having to prove myself. It's actually the best.
Yeah, we're just like, how do you feel? What did you like? What didn't you like?
My design teacher in college for theatrical design used to ask this really important question, which was just, what did you see and how did it make you feel? And that's the world I get to live in when I am invited to play test, and I really enjoy it, because as much as I love passion, I don't really want to scream at people about statistics.
No, I don't. We might get loud, but I don't think we've ever screamed at each other.
No, like elevated voices.
You're making us sound like monsters here. Sometimes volume helps you make your point, and it's important.
There's also a lot of like loud guffawing laughter.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're
from
very
down the
silly.
hall.
We're very silly.
It's true.
I think that's a good marker, though, right? Like, if people aren't having fun when we're playtesting, no matter how serious the thing we are working on might be, then we kind of have a core problem, right? Your success in game development and design and stuff comes from the idea that no matter how into the moment you are, or how serious the game situation or conversation around it is, you need to also be able to immediately fall into laughter or fall into a smile or talk about how amazing something was. Because that's at the end of the day, that's the whole point, is to make things that are fun and exciting and enjoyable, and remind people that, hey, it's cool to hang out in person and talk to people.
I
and
think
have
that's,
these shared experiences.
There's a lot of reasons for everyone to be excited about Mini-Strav, right? But one of the most revitalizing parts, I think, for me at Mini-Strav is while we are sharing with all of you, we are also sharing space with each other in a way that's a lot more rare than you'd think, because usually all of our separate teams are off doing our piece of the puzzle, right? And so it's really great to be with everybody while we're doing that, and things like gonk racing come out of Mini-Strav fun.
Oh, gonk racing. It's true. You never know. I mean, that whole Adepticon event came from the fact that Adepticon was asking about fun, cool things we could do, and I think Dallas made a joke about gonk racing, and they took it a little more serious than it might have been meant, or maybe Dallas is just an evil mastermind, and he knew exactly how to get what he wanted. But then from the whole joke of gonk racing, that sounds ridiculous. Well, Adepticon thinks it would be cool, and we're like, we're not seriously considering this, to Mini-Strav having everyone together and all of a sudden being like, well, what if? But what if we did it, I'm going to leave the clinic on faces to the master himself, Dallas Kemp, but I think he would love, and put that on his schedule.
I was just writing it down, actually.
Yeah, he's done a couple of different face clinics before for Mini-Strav, and I know he's done a couple in person at Adepticon classes and stuff, but I bet he would love to spend 90 minutes on stream talking about painting faces and how to do it and get good results. I'll be honest, I'm mediocre at faces at best. My clinic for you is find a really good flesh tone that you like. From a line, and I've gone on record before saying one of my struggles with the Monument paint line that I really like is that they do not have a out of the bottle flesh tone that I love, or I've found a lot of success with the way I like to paint faces. So I typically have to mix, and it's not terrible, but it's definitely more of a struggle for me. But find a skin tone that you like, right out of the bottle, and then find a really good flesh wash, pre-bottled flesh wash. The Monument one is pretty solid from what I've used with it. So I can definitely say that one, but there's a lot of different flesh washes. So find the one that you like the look of the best, the way that it works. And then the whole flesh face process for me is base coat with your flesh tone that you really like, do a flesh wash, go back in with your favorite flesh tone, highlight, the little hot spots, so the eye ridges, the tip of the nose, right under the eyes, and then the little bit of chin, and call it a day. That's it. I do as little as possible on skin tones for the most part, because I find them very tedious and difficult to do. And whenever I've gone further than really that, I always wind up in a situation where I hate it more than I did if I had just left it alone to start. So I know my limit. I know exactly where I need to go with it to make myself happy, and at the end of the day, that's all I care about. The only other technique that I've found for painting skin tones that I've grown to like more and more and more, which I'll share with you, goes back to oil washes. And so if you, instead of using flesh wash, which you can do, that I think works amazingly well and doesn't require you to find a good flesh wash that you like out of the pot, is paint your flesh tones and then get some magenta oil paint, create a magenta oil wash, and then wash that over the skin and then wipe most of it off. And the magenta oil wash will really bring a lot of vibrant hue to the overall skin tone, and it looks really great. And it's super fast and easy, and it's very controllable because oil washes you can remove as much as you want. So those are absolutely a way to do it. And then as far as my suggestion for painting eyes is don't. I leave all of my eyeballs on people as fleshy voids that are just, shaded in from the flesh wash itself or whatever kind of like wash I'm doing, and I don't worry about the eyes. Unless a character is giving you like googly eyes and it's really noticeable, I just ignore it because it's challenging and it takes a lot of practice. And again, for me, I'm just painting for tabletop quality and for it to look good on my shelf. And ultimately, I've never found that painting a good set of eyes has changed anything for me. So,
yeah, finding your own like sort of what is your goal with your faces, right, is definitely the same as kind of the like what to do in 30 minutes question. It all comes down to what's your ideal, like
yep.
what's your goal. I am working on faces as well right now, and I also find that I watch a lot of drag performers put on makeup and sculpt faces, and I also just enjoy makeup myself. So I watch a lot of like makeup TikToks, and there's a lot about like sculpting the face.
Yeah.
So figuring out
when you can watch a very masculine man turn himself into a very like dainty, like, the lady with a really slim nose, you're onto something, because that's all you're doing in painting is just, you're just tricking the eye with that stuff. So that's absolutely, it's an amazing resource if you want to get better at painting faces, or if you find yourself always struggling with the amount of detail in a facial sculpt, because the reality is that the scale at which these miniatures are made, right? They're tiny.
Yeah.
So there's only so much fidelity or detail that the sculptor can put into the face before it becomes unreadable or it becomes problematic to paint. So if you find that, you're like, oh, I don't know, like I never get the cheekbone detail. I really want sharp cheekbones, or my noses always look a little weird. Understanding how to contour using those makeup videos that you're talking about is huge. It's a game changer.
And another thing to think about is, there are specific things in those makeup videos that they look at, which is like how to hollow out the cheeks, how to thin the nose, and how to shape not like the eyebrow, but like your brow, like the front of your, above your eyebrows. And if you even only just focus on those for a little bit, you'll start to see faces on your miniatures change pretty significantly, and then you can build up from there with highlights and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. So
those are my 2 cents that you didn't ask for.
It's a great call. No, it's a great call. Absolutely. Huge thing. Wow, Flesh Wash really took off in the chat, and I don't know how to respond to it now. Like we're going down a path that I don't know if I can follow here. It's just, it's just the name. It's just the name of a paint. We just used the Flesh Wash actually for Monument on all of our skin tones here.
Stop saying it though.
No, I can't. That's the name of it. I can't.
Gravitational pull.
There's no other name for it. It's
Flesh
Wash. Now we're using some transparent brown on the hair to get in and deepen up those colors and stuff.
Do you have any thoughts on how to get the perfect like brown Leia hair color? Because it's kind of auburny, but it's not red. Thoughts, feelings?
I think if you went in with like a mahogany, or what I did is I'm using a light umber, and then I'm using the transparent brown, which the transparent brown, I found the pigment is pretty red. And so this will get close, but what you want to do after that is when this dries is probably go back through with either a black wash, or, I'm going to say it again because this is just my life now, an oil wash of black to catch all of the detailing in there. And then that would give you that, you'd have those hits of high, bright, kind of auburn, brown, red, but you'd also get the really deep recesses and the richness in there. And so it's just a layering, it just comes down to layering. But if you think about how hair kind of reflects light, your normal layering, you do dark, then you do your midtone, then you do your dark, then you do your highlights. You can do that, but if you can use transparent paints, you can actually start from your base color, and then you can effectively just transparently layer on your darks, which will make it, I think, feel more natural. To me, it feels more like hair at that point, because instead of seeing the brights on top, the brights are actually underneath, but they'll show through the different filters that you put on it. So applying filters on top of the kind of your, whatever you want your highlight to be, can work really well. So that's my suggestion, is really use transparent layers to play with those, because it's the same idea with skin, right? Like your skin is actually translucent, and the color of your skin is partially based on your melanin, but it's also, why do we always think of like rosy cheeks, right? And like rich, everything has an underhue of red to it. It's because your skin actually shows all of your blood vessels, right? And so it's red and blue and that kind of stuff. And so if you start thinking about laying over transparent layers, instead of trying to go from one color and build up, you'll get a more natural look to it. And that's where your glaze and wash mediums and things like that come in, your transparent colors. All of those things allow you to create a translucency, and you can layer colors over, or your oil washes. It's the same idea as to why kind of the magenta oil wash works, because even when you wipe most of it away, there's still some left. So that's kind of my suggestion for when you get to like hair colors and stuff. If you can really start to play with your translucent or transparent layers and create a bunch of filters for it, you'll probably wind up feeling a lot more excited or happy with the results, because it'll look more natural to your eye. And you can do the same thing with flesh tones as well. And Dallas might cover that in his masterclass on painting that he's going to give, because we've now locked him into it. See, I'm doing more than I normally would. Normally I just leave it alone, but we're going to do a little bit of highlighting, because why not? Why not make myself suffer here? But for instance, I want to go in and I want to take the wash that shall not be named, because Chad has made it a dirty word now. And I'm just going to like layer some in to contour the nose more. So just kind of letting it get in there and get around the nose and a little under the nose, and then maybe under the lips. We got to do her. We'll see if we have time. 10 minutes. She's got that really bright 70s red lipstick too. We got to get on there and make her lips really pop.
I don't know if that's real. Is it?
Yeah, she's got some very glossy lips in that whole thing. They're very shiny under the lights. I don't know if they're not like clown red. I'm not saying they're clown red, but they're very glistening. They're very shiny. I guess she's got like a lip gloss. Is that better? Is that a better phrase for you? I don't know. I don't know what you want.
I didn't like glissy.
What did you want? No. What do you want from me, Ann? We'll do her cool golden belt.
It's not gold.
Well, mine is.
Okay.
So
well, that's.
Step back.
You know what?
What color is it supposed to be? Silver? That's boring.
White and silver.
Boring. She's
Okay.
a princess.
All right.
She gets gold.
Well, it's your choice.
It doesn't feel like it, but now we're going. I'm gonna show you.
I'll show you. I'll show you a cool princess belt.
Yeah.
Listen.
I'm gonna
Make
paint
it
her.
your own,
You know what? Just because you've upset me now, we're gonna give her some G Money bling to her E11.
I would call this lip color in the images where it's not like the beginning of the film and there's that red light on it, which is kind of deceptive. I would call it like a rose, but it's definitely glossy. Like you're very right about that.
Told you. Super shiny. Episode 4 is, in my opinion, the greatest Star Wars ever made. So I've watched it a lot. There was a moment at which during my later teen years that as the cool guy that I am, I could literally do it line by line from memory. The whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get that.
Not anymore,
I
though.
think I could probably do Empire.
Yeah, I'm
not
out
sure
of
how far
practice
I get.
now, but Empire's fine. But I will die on the hill that the best Star Wars always have starfighter battles in them.
That's fair.
Just period. And Empire doesn't have it, so therefore it can't be one of the best. The snowspeeder fight on Hoth doesn't count. That's not starfighters. So don't at me.
Don't at me, bro.
Yeah. All right, now we're gonna go into this black wash.
Duere Wildstar. Oh God, she made C-3PO into a golden
That's right.
blaster.
Scaramouche. She's ready to go.
To be honest, I'm here for this interpretation.
That's good, because it's what you got. So now you got to deal with it. This one's going to go in. I'm just using some black wash here that's thinned out. We're just going to go over the hair, because again, kind of talking about the transparent layer idea. And using those filters to not only get in there and shadow and shade all of the different textures and recesses and stuff, but also to really control how the color comes through to our eye. And where I want to, I can come in and like on the part, I can really make it dark, and maybe over here where the buns are, the little cinnabuns are, go in there and do that. But we can play with those ideas, and then come back in to our, you know what? I'm gonna mix my transparent brown and my flesh wash. I said it. Oh, it's not dry yet. I can't do it. I'm gonna shadow up our gold, but I can't get there yet. Oh, Dallas just showed up right at the end. Right at the end, because I think we're basically complete. There's not too much.
Dallas, do you appreciate the gold belt supremacy?
I mean, of course he does. He doesn't have a choice. Look, I remembered that her lips were glossy. All right, I can't remember belts. I don't.
No, it's
More do you want from me?
I have a weird knowledge of costuming from my cosplay times.
The gold belt just looks better. Putting silver on white, like it's too much of the same colors. You need that little bit of panache, that pizzazz.
I do agree that it's doing something. For
that
the lips.
Pazuzu right here. I mean, she's a princess. She's got to have some gold. It's just a rule. It's the way it works. All right. And then a little bit of this. Smoke show up the little eyeballs. Again, not going to paint them, but
I could say that technically silver is the royal color on
Alderaan?
Alderaan.
Well, guess what? Alderaan's destroyed, and
Wow.
apparently for good reason.
Fashion crimes.
You said they're a rose color? All right, we'll give it a try.
Yeah, it's like a little bit deeper pink than like the natural lip, but like on the cool tone rather than like a crazy hot pink, right?
We like hot pinks. Well, this is about as good as it's going to get with our 4 minutes left. not quite as deep as maybe we would want it, but I think it's okay, because otherwise we're going to wind up too dark here. But get the color on that lip. That'll work. Top lip color a little bit. There. All right. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to shade the gun, the little E11 blaster, but overall, we're very, very close on this Leia for the tabletop. We got to do the base and everything else, but here we go. With her golden C-3PO E11, apparently. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on this intrepid Princess Leia adventure. And be sure to tune in, not tomorrow, because we're going to be off for Juneteenth. We're going to be celebrating that big holiday and taking a break as a studio, but we'll be back next week. I believe Dallas will be here for both days, because I will be out of the office, so you won't see me on Tuesday, but you will see Dallas Kemp. And he will be here at the minimum on Wednesday, but maybe on Tuesday for a special face painting clinic. We'll see what happens. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.